Welcome to the FT. Michael Bloomberg has taken back the reins of his eponymous market data group, and we have Andrew Edgecliffe-Johnson, the US news editor, here to discuss this move. Andrew, what does this say about the business of Bloomberg as opposed to the man, to the extent that you can separate the two?
Well, first of all, it does remind us it's a private business. He controls it. And even when he was mayor of New York for 12 years, everybody assumed that he was being consulted on the major decisions at the company. For most of that time, the company was actually being run by Dan Doctoroff as chief executive, who'd been a deputy mayor to Mike Bloomberg, so it's very close to the man. Last night, the two men decided there wasn't really room in the company for both of them. Mike Bloomberg came back in a big way to this company. He decided, having pledged that he wasn't going to end up running the company again, that actually he wanted to direct the company that bears his name. But I think what it also tells us is he's coming back to a very different company. It's grown substantially under Dan Doctoroff. It's also really diversified, in part because the core business, serving the bond market with information, is coming under a bit more pressure. Some of that information is less valuable than it once was when they first set up. And secondly, Wall Street is beginning to move into its own territory.
So tell us about that. The financial institutions are usurping gradually the services that Bloomberg used to provide, high margin ones at that. Goldman is talking about setting up its own messaging service. You have various trading platforms setting up, eking into the Bloomberg business model.
So yeah, in the 6 years of Dan Doctoroff's tenure as CEO, Bloomberg's revenues went from $5.4 billion to over $9 billion. So that means Wall Street is spending $9 billion a year on Bloomberg's technology. Now that's only a part of the total technology spend for a big bank. Think about that amount of money at a time when banks are under pressure to cut costs. They're all looking to whether they can do more of that in-house. So you're seeing a lot more investment from the financial sector into technology, the kind of technology that was once the preserve of the Bloombergs and the Thomson Reuters. We're seeing particular pressure at the moment, and a really interesting story where the banks are trying to develop their own messaging technology. One of the reasons that so many traders and other people on Wall Street and in the City of London and far beyond want to have a Bloomberg terminal on their desk is that it's how they exchange messages with their peers and their colleagues. If we see a real threat to Bloomberg's dominance of that world, that could be a big challenge for Mike Bloomberg as he walks back in to run the company.
And at the same time, the company seems to be expanding into perhaps a less profitable media area.
Yeah, they have a stated goal to be the most influential news organization on the planet. They've had Bloomberg News for many, many years, serving the financial markets with everything from commodities information to political information. But increasingly, we're seeing them try to widen the audience for that. They bought Business Week to try and get into the C-suite of corporate America, to get the Bloomberg brand better known around the US business world. They've expanded into legal information, and they've expanded big time in Washington. They've made a big push into political news as well. So I think we'll continue to see that. They've got a new leader of the Bloomberg media group called Justin Smith, who looks like a man on the rise within the company.
And will we see a further changing of the guard, do you think, now that Dan Doctoroff has moved on?
I think this reminder of, as Mike Bloomberg comes back into a very different company, is that the team around him who've been very, very loyal to him, people like Tom Secunda, Matt Winkler, and Peter Grauer, the chairman, and who all know what it's like to work for Mike Bloomberg, so I won't have any illusions about who's in control here. They're all actually getting on in years. So there is a question, a longer term question about who really runs this business. Mike Bloomberg has a lot of other interests, philanthropic and other interests rolling over from his time as mayor. He wants to keep pursuing those issues. So how much time he'll devote to actually running the nuts and bolts of the company is an interesting question. Will he need to appoint another CEO in due course? He's left that title open, which leaves the question open as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.